I am Futurist Amelia Kallman. Today I will be speaking to you about new technologies and trends in a post-COVID age. These are the things that I've been noticing and studying over the last 6 months or so, and I hope you enjoy it as well. So I don't actually come from a technical background. I grew up as a child actress, and then I owned nightclubs around the world. I opened the first burlesque and cabaret nightclub in China, had a big success there, got thrown out of China, ended up here in this country in the UK. I'm in London, and I didn't have a visa, so I couldn't work. So that's when I wrote my book, Diary of a Shanghai Showgirl, which has gone on to win some awards and hopefully be making into a TV show, so we'll see. But then I got a visa and I could work. So as soon as I got a visa, I needed a job, any job, I didn't care. And I went to, a friend of mine was going to an innovation conference. And at the time, I probably didn't even really understand what innovation meant, but I said, let me go along with you, I'll host your booth, I'll network, maybe I'll meet someone, maybe somebody will give me a job. So I go along to this conference, and there's a booth a couple over from ours, and it has all this really cool technology. It has touchscreen tables and these virtual books and some like holograms and a bit of augmented reality, and I'd never seen anything like it. So I just kept asking lots of questions, and then I was bringing my people over and explaining to them what had been explained to me, and finally somebody said, "Do you work for us?" And I said, "No, but I should." And a week later, I was hired as a marketing assistant at a creative technology agency. And there I worked my way up. I became their global head of innovation, opening up innovation labs in London and Dubai where people could come and get hands-on with all these latest new technologies. And what was really lucky for me was the timing of it, because this was 2013, and this was when things like Google Glass came out and the Oculus Rift got kickstarted. So all these technologies were really new to everyone. And then shortly after that, I realized I had a bit of a talent for being able to make the complex accessible to people. I think that's because I don't come from a technical background, and these things can be quite intimidating. And I really believe that technology is for the people, and if we can't understand it, that's no use to us anyways. So and then since then I've been freelance. I've been going around the world doing lots of talks about. I specialize in XR. So virtual augmented mixed reality, and also things like data privacy, a bit of artificial intelligence, machine learning. But I guess what I'm kind of known for the most is I don't just talk about the opportunities of these technologies, but also the potential risks, which is something I believe we don't talk about nearly enough. And I do a lot of consultancy with insurance companies and law firms so that we can just be aware of what is coming. And so today I want to talk to you about some of those as well. Okay, so we have seen the world change. Somebody said the other day in one of these conferences that, what usually takes 2 years for companies when it comes to digital transformation, everybody's done in 2 months. So we've had this acceleration of change. Some things that have become really apparent, first of all, this global supply chain, relying on a single source supply chain has been something that has failed us to some degree. So just relying on China or India to give us a paracetamol when we need it, So I think we're going to see an emergence of both local and global suppliers, and this new kind of thinking around how we diversify our supply chains. Then, of course, there's the decentralization of the workplace, which most of us are still a part of. And that's something, again, we've been talking about for ages, the future of work, being able to work from home, being a digital native, and this is happening now. It's just kicked into action. And I don't see us going back to the way things were before. And then finally, the role of companies have changed. The roles of schools have changed. The roles, well, I don't know. I might leave governments out of this for a minute, but what's happened is that we have become bigger than our brands, bigger than our companies. Now people really care about our values, where we put our time and money. When the companies have boycotted Facebook recently, those were seen as very respectable things for these companies to do, and it is at a cost to these companies. But for people, for their customers, they're saying, well, this aligns with my values, and I appreciate that these companies are human and not just, out for the bottom dollar, and are also looking out for a greater society, looking out for the bigger good. So 5G and edge computing. 5G is something I've been talking about for a long time. Edge computing is something I've only been able to recently wrap my mind around. And what edge is it basically means we have this cloud where everything is processed, but it brings the engine that processes it closer to our computer. So that brings down latency, it brings up quality, and along with 5G, this means that everything is just going to work that much faster, and hopefully be that much better quality. So when it comes to things like XR, so virtual augmented mixed reality, being able to deliver these experiences, whereas before we might have had, a bit of latency issues, or pixelation, or anything like, I mean, back in 2013, these technologies were making people sick to their stomach. They're not doing that anymore. They have come a long, long ways in such a short amount of time, and they are continuing to develop. But this also means things like with virtual reality, Oculus Quest, that means that Facebook now have cameras in your bedroom or wherever you have your headset set up. So there are other things around that as well. But, while we've been in lockdown, things like on Fortnite, Travis Scott did a concert where he had 12.8 million people, show up and gather for this 15-minute concert in the metaverse. And that's the largest gathering that's ever existed. So these solutions, these technologies are offering us alternatives to being able to come together in ways that we can't when we are physically separated. Training, collaboration, being able to design, being able to see things that aren't actually there. One of my favorite technologies is this one by Scape. So they have just, they're a startup I've worked with for a couple of years, but they've just been bought by Facebook for $40 million. And what this allows them to do is to take these digital 3D, 360-degree content and be able to geopin it to certain locations. So now the whole world is open to us for advertising, for conveying messages. So through your phone, you can look at a building and maybe see what it used to look like. You can see who's inside the building. You can see if people have posted on social media there. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Basically, that's one thing I love about the new realities is it's this complete kind of landscape that we can populate and do what we want with. That's also the scary thing about it, is because, it is a bit of the Wild West. It's unregulated, which I'll get back to in a minute. And yeah, anything is possible. So we'll see. But another technology that I always talk about is Ultraleap. So Ultraleap allows you to feel sensations in midair. So this is virtual touch sensation. It's haptic technology, but it uses ultrasound, so you don't actually have to touch anything. It just makes you feel like you're touching things. And what we found is, since we've entered this age where we're doing gesture control and all this kind of stuff, that the brain is not happy doing this, because the brain likes it when you press a button and something happens and you get that feedback, or you flick a switch, or you turn a dial. Like, that tells the brain, like, I've made something happen. So what this does is this simulates that feeling, right? So you think about things like ATM machines, or those those walk buttons that you have to press to get the guy to walk across the street, right? How filthy are those things, right? Like, have they ever been cleaned? I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to think about it. Like the McDonald's, those touch screens, they did a test and they said 100% of them had fecal matter on them. These things are gross, right? Like, so, but being able to interact is still cool. But if we could interact and not have to touch things, not have to share our germs, how great is that? So this technology is starting to be incorporated in things like cars. It is available. I think we're going to start to see them on things like ATM machines or those little walk guys as well. And they've also just made an upgrade to their hand tracking. So they've done a collaboration with Qualcomm, I believe. And so their hand tracking can be used in multiple devices and has come a long ways. So they're definitely one to watch. The black market. So I mentioned this before, the potential risks of the new reality. So you take the dark web, and you put it in the metaverse. So now you have people who can do things that are dangerous, are socially frowned upon, are illegal, and they can act these things out in a place where there is no consequences. So how we then deal with that becomes an issue. So like I said, there is no jurisdiction on the metaverse. There is no regulation on it. For the most part, it's completely self-regulated. But there is, nothing stopping people from creating these kind of experiences. And then you have to think, so if somebody is acting these things out in a virtual world, does that going to mean that they feel like they can do it then in reality and potentially get away with it because they've experienced what it's like to have no consequences there? So I have friends who develop inside of these virtual worlds, and they say that what happens is they spend the whole day inside virtual reality, and then they take the headset off, and then they go to go home, and their instinct is to walk into traffic, because in virtual reality you can walk into traffic and nothing happens. And it doesn't take long for your brain to just rewire itself. I mean, our brains are very flexible, and it gets used to these virtual worlds, and so that's this like kind of dislocation that we have to be aware of. I know for years we've been talking about the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things has quickly turned into the intelligence of things. Now that things are already connected, how smart are they? How can we make them smarter? And then where I think this is going is the emotional intelligence of things. So this is an example of a car that was created, I think it's called Avatar, by James Cameron, the director, and BMW. And its idea is that as things become more automated, as our cars start to drive themselves, the car will become more of a companion for us. So this car will be able to communicate us and share its feelings, right? Which is kind of scary to think about, the fact that you can like hurt your car's feelings in the future. Or your car could turn into your biggest confidant. I think is quite interesting. But it runs through your biodata. So you just, it has no steering wheel. You put your hand down and it reads, and you direct it that way. And it actually runs. So during CES, they ran it down the strip, which I thought was amazing. Deep fakes is one of the biggest things that concerns me. So for instance, the US president 4 years ago, there was a video about him grabbing women, and he had to apologize for it. It's one of the only times he ever has apologized. And here we are 4 years later, and now he can say, oh, that was a deep fake. That wasn't me. That was somebody using my image, putting words in my mouth. And so what that does is it creates this society, this future, where we cannot trust what we see or what we hear. And what does that do to us as people, as a society? We're already starting to see that with things like social media. So the algorithms behind social media, are really destructive. I recommend everybody sees The Social Dilemma on Netflix. It's really good. It's stuff that I've been talking about for years, and even me watching it, I made some big changes to my digital intake and browsers after watching it. So, but what it means is that they've come up with these algorithms that hack your brain for your attention to sell advertisements. So we're all being manipulated every time we, use a mobile phone, use an app, use social media. And what they've also found is that information now then gets personalized to us. So depending on where I live in the world, if I search flat earth, it'll either come up as that's a hoax, or yeah, join the club down the street. You know, we all believe in flat earth. And we're not sharing this information. So we don't have this common place for information. And I believe that these are going to become human rights issues of the future. Who owns our data? Like if somebody else owns my image, my voice, you know, my preferences, these become human rights issues. So regulation. So basically, I really honestly believe that the government's let us down in a lot of ways, not regulating things like social media or apps or these algorithms. And I've always, until just recently, kind of taken the look at this that, you know, yes, we do need regulation, but we got to be really careful not to stifle innovation. I have kind of turned a corner in that I very much feel like, yes, we need regulation. You know, because the impact that this is having to a society, you know, the suicide rate since mobile phone use has come into action, since social media has come into action, have gone up amongst teenagers, self-harm, depression, anxiety, all these things, and we can directly correlate it back to these. I mentioned before having a receptor for where we can go for trusted truth. And this is, I believe, coming from artificial intelligence. So Diffbot actually scours the internet, reads everything, and picks out the facts from it, and then creates this knowledge graph. So they hope that this will become something that people can rely on as a source of where to go. And if we can kind of start to get back to a place where we can all agree that, you know, there is a truth, you know, there is a fact, then that would be a big step forward. So kind of finally, this idea about diversifying data points. So I think we've had a big, you know, a lot of companies have invested a lot in social media and putting their attention there. But what I would kind of advise is that beware of all these new ones that are coming up. Like, for instance, being able to share your messages through augmented reality, geopin to different locations, you know, using the voice of your brand towards values, towards being able to assist and help the greater good of society. These all become different ways that you can reach audiences and have an impact at the same time. So finally, you know, statement consumerism. This is something that's been happening for years, and it continues to happen. So, for instance, like you know, veganism has risen 400% in the last 3 years. You know, people want to have some control in a world where we have very little control. So what can I do individually that's going to make a difference? You know, if it becomes between buying one brand and another that do the same thing, I'm going to go with the one that has an emotional connection with me. So, and hopefully that's of the same values. Also giving people choice, letting them understand that how, you know, you're using their data. If they want to give their data, if they want to donate their data, that becomes so powerful. It just turns it right around to say, like, you have the decision. Like, do you want to donate your data to allow us to give you a reward in return? All these kind of things start to really help that consumer relationship. So I know this one was a short one today. Thank you for your kind attention. Every month I do an innovation newsletter called The Big Reveal, and I have one coming. Oh, actually, I think by the time this airs, it will have just come out. So if you would like to see it, just subscribe at my website. They're basically the top 10 coolest things that I've seen that month that I think people should know about. It's totally free. It's just a service that I do. And it also talks about where I'm speaking next and that kind of thing. So, and you can get in touch with me there. So thank you again for your kind attention. And now I look forward to your questions. Take care.